and thank you for tuning in to watch this show. In this short series, we are going to discuss the pros and cons of the classic console games and modern console gaming, their evolution, and how they've shaped entertainment today. Ever since the Atari systems in the late 1970s and early 80s, video games have become an ever-increasing part of American culture. Arriving not too long after colored television, these systems propelled household entertainment into vast, imaginary reaches of the future. Today, console and even PC gaming has become a large part of family and personal entertainment within the home, and has even taken center stage among hobbyists and careers. Thanks to innovative graphics and processing technology, gaming today enjoys breathtaking graphics, deep and inventive storylines, and capabilities to engage players from across the globe. Never before have we ever been able to play one-on-one with somebody clear across the other side of the planet. As humans, we crave entertainment. From hunting tales told by the campfire to the theatrical dramas of the Greek Empire, evidence for entertainment can be found in every period and culture on the globe. But never has this craving been more evident than in the modern age. So much so, that the majority of our technology is built right around it. Even though video games have been around only recently within our human history, they are arguably the third largest industry, next to television and music. Since the days of Atari, gaming has come a long way. And even though many games coming out now appear to be instant classics within the gaming world's future, there are still many classics from bygone systems back in the early days that are still being played to this day. Many with characters, worlds, and storylines that continue to evolve even to this present day. This short series will aim to compare these true classic games from their modern representatives. We'll look at the innovations of their day as well as those from the modern stock. And we will look at the pros and cons of both the classic genre and what we have available to us today. This is the Nintendo Entertainment System. Released in America in 1983, it was to become the Western representative of the Japanese gaming console known as Famicom. It was this system that pushed console gaming forward into the industry that it has become. It sparked fierce competition between it and its rival company, Sega Enterprises. This console war, even though it got off a little bit to a slow start, it blew up later on. Until now, we have like a full head-on Armageddon of consoles, so to say. It wasn't actually until the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis started going head-to-head. And then it snowballed from there. Since then, we had seen the rise and fall of consoles such as the Atari Jaguar, the TurboGrafx-16, and other lesser-known consoles crushed by these bigger giants. The competition eventually saw to the demotion of whole console companies such as Sega, whom now only develops games instead of whole console systems. Today there are three main players on the video game battlefield. Nintendo, which presently has their Wii U system, Sony, with its line of PlayStations up to the 4th development, and the Microsoft Xbox system. Nintendo's move from the joystick style to the crosshair control revolutionized the ease by which we control our game's characters' moves. Everybody, at least as old as I am, remembers the simplicity of these controls. The crosshairs, in opposition to the actual joystick that we used, the development into crosshair controls allowed for a lot more ease of maneuverability with the controllers. As games continued to develop, more complex gamepads with more buttons started to evolve. Since Nintendo's inception, we have gone from the simple 5-button gamepad to something like this from Sony PlayStation's control pad, which has upwards of 9 individual buttons plus the crosshairs, to some with even more. in addition to the analog sticks right here. While it can be argued that more buttons mean more controls, in some regards it can be said that less is better. Today's gamepads have a steep learning curve for those who are used to more simplistic basic pads. More buttons means more memorization in regard to the function, and this can add to frustration in starting a game for the very first time. This is evidenced by the fact that many game titles today often start you off with a tutorial on how to use the gamepad's controls. An example is playing Final Fantasy XII, which kind of deviated from the original franchise in the gaming controls. In the beginning of the storyline, it basically told you how to maneuver around the world by pressing once to walk, or even press it down harder for your character to run, how to navigate your menus, talk to other players, and if you're not keen on the controls, it can become very daunting to memorize everything. Not to mention, if you have more than one console, it even becomes more difficult when you got different schematics. For instance, PlayStation's shape designations, and opposed to something like Nintendo that has the X, Y, A, and B, and even Microsoft, who even changes that up. And I'm pretty sure you remember seeing memes about the X button being in different places on different consoles. Apparently the X button becomes the most important key feature, but yet it's never on the same place in each console's control. That kind of adds to the confusion. Not only that, but each game's controls are different, and if a game allows for custom controls, is one often able to comfortably switch from game to game without confusing those functions. Adding this insult to injury, not all games use every single button on today's gamepads, which then begs the question, are that many buttons really necessary? On the flip side, more choices mean more options. While each game might not utilize every single control on a gamepad, many games do allow for players to customize what each button does in regard to controls and actions within the game. I think, in my opinion, this is probably the only redeeming quality of our modern gamepads. Since I grew up in the beginning age of Nintendo, my hands have become more adept and adjustable to something simple such as this. And as gaming evolved, I've had to relearn each new system's controls. And this kind of alienates people. It kind of divides them into different camps based on whether you like Xbox or PlayStation or Nintendo. And more often than not, it's not so much because of preference, it's because they're used to that gamepad style. Just think about that for a little bit. How much does your console's gamepad dictate which console you use? And then ask yourself, how often can you switch from one control to the next on the separate consoles? With these newer games, I often become very confused as to what button to push and when. In these newer games, where I cannot adjust or personalize the pad's controls to something I'm more used to or comfortable with, it becomes more of a chore than it does an enjoyment. So, I'd like to ask your opinions. What do you think about the development of our gamepads and our controls? What are your opinions on these gamepad mechanics, from the more simpler 8-bit 1980s version of Nintendo to the more complex things that we have now? Which do y'all prefer, and what do you think the pros and cons of today's console gamepads are compared to those of years before? Leave your comments down below, and please, I would greatly appreciate it if you rate and subscribe this video, and thank you once again for watching. See you next time.